People Not Titles podcast is brought to you by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
Well, hello, this is Steve Kemp with the People Not Titles podcast, and I am here with just a great person and one of my favorites, Phil Fornaro, who is the founder of Fornaro Law in LaGrange. And Phil, I just want to say welcome to the People Not Titles podcast. We're so excited about having you, and just thank you for making the time.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I was really excited when I saw you with those fancy sunglasses on your little thumbnail there. That was sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, the future is so bright that we have to wear shades. That's why that's the reason for the sunglasses. I didn't want to look like a Secret Service,
No, that makes a lot of sense. I kind of like that. Maybe I'll steal it.
So Phil, let's get into it. So I'm sure you weren't born a lawyer. And so maybe just talk a little bit about your journey to getting into to starting your own practice and some of the milestones there on your way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I agree or disagree with your comment. I wasn't born to be a lawyer. It was kind of an interesting phenomenon. I grew up in a very ethnic Italian family, and we were fighting from day one, the day I could speak about something high volume discussions. So.
Okay, so maybe you were born to be, well, I said you weren't born a lawyer, but maybe you were born to be one, you know what I mean?
Yeah, much better, much better.
Yeah.
Framed it nice. So it's interesting. So for some reason, I just always wanted to be a lawyer. And I think it was directly related to that. Being a lawyer opened you up into so many different things, whether it's government, whether it's private, whether it's public, and you don't even have to do things. I mean, if you're an engineer or, you can also be a patent lawyer and these type of things. So it just gave you, it seemed like the thing to do, learn more. Plus it was important for my family because we had just started, I'm first generation. My dad came over from Italy. So it's starting to get into education, going to college and becoming a professional. It's important for the whole family to sort of, dive into that area. And although I wasn't a huge fan of law school, I know that it did me well in a lot of ways.
Well, Phil, it's unique. I've raised, or in the process of raising 4 kids, and some of them are very clear on what they want to do. And some of them, they get, into their late teens and are still kind of fumbling around. So at what age did you say, I'm going to be a lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, it had to be, right start in high school and, a little bit before, I was
That's
always,
great.
Sort of focused on that. I think my dad at some point was pushing me towards being a doctor, but, I didn't like that too much.
So there was an expectation from your parents of saying, hey, we're getting here. I want you to go farther than I did education wise. And even, some people are like, you're going to college, but it sounds to me like in your family, it was college isn't enough. We want you to take it next level even. And go the extra mile there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It wasn't necessarily their push. It just was a feeling that I had, and it was sort of an accomplishment that I wanted to achieve. And it was nice because it was trying something new, something that nobody had really experienced before. So at least in our family.
Yeah, having that fuel, the kind of that intention. Did you ever get to the point as you're pursuing your degree that you were like, man, I've made the wrong move? Did you ever think that?
So the answer is no, except for one moment during the bar exam. I was on question 100 of 200 on the multiple choice. And I go, yeah, maybe I'm going to be a really good plumber because I think I could pass that test possibly. Although, they're way better a lot of people are way better at plumbing than I am. But yeah, I was scared. I thought that was the end. I thought I wasn't going to take that test again. I hated it.
So 100 questions in, you started to doubt yourself like, uh-oh, am I in over my head?
Yeah. All this money I paid for college and law school, and one test is going to blow me out of the water. So it was good. But besides that, no, I never looked back. It was the right career for me.
Phil, that's a good point too. I think a lot of people, they get somewhere into it and they kind of feel maybe a little bit like imposter syndrome, or I don't belong here, or man, there's a lot smarter people in this than me, and what, who am I kidding and all that. And it's great to know that someone who is a successful entrepreneur felt that way too.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, I always say that it took me 52 years. I'm 54 now, and it took me 52 years to really realize what made me happy, in the scheme of things. And it's not law; it's the people that I meet, the responses I get from people. So you're always changing, and you're always challenging yourself. I mean, I think the first year in, and I'm not an emotional guy, but I was getting crushed by an attorney. I think it was like 3 years in. And I talked to my mom. I said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me." And now you see you pulled it out of me, Steve. Nicely done. And I said,
Yeah,
"No, maybe this is not for me. These guys are crushing me." And she goes, "How many years has this guy been in the business? The guy that's crushing you?" I don't know. He probably is like, you know, 55 years old. He goes, she said, "Don't worry about it. Take your lumps, get in there." And my mom was like the ultimate in positivity. So I think that's
that's
where I
great.
learned it from her. And I fought through it. I got killed, but it was okay. I learned from it. I learned I didn't do that again, and then sort of grew from there. So those things happen to everyone. Your audience should definitely not worry about failure or mistakes or not knowing exactly what they want to do, because hey, if you don't try new things, maybe you like something better.
Yeah. And think about it, Phil, the guy who was crushing you, you still haven't reached his age yet. And you think about the span of knowledge, experience, relationships, moxie that you have now compared to, what you had then.
Yeah, Steve, that's real important. It makes me happy to think about it because, a young, 30-year-old me or 20, yeah, 30-year-old me is nowhere even close to what I am now as a person, just based on my experiences and interacting with people, throughout the world, and people like you. I mean, you taught us a lot when we worked together frequently back in the downturn. So
Yeah. So, Phil, it's one thing to get your law degree, but it's another thing then to say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, because they really are two separate things. There's a separate skill set to being an entrepreneur, and there's a separate skill set to being a great attorney. Many great attorneys never become entrepreneurs. So what was the threshold that you crossed where you said, okay, I want to have my name on the sign, and I want to be the leader of my tribe here?
So it's all based on experience. So at the time when, I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur, so it didn't directly relate to the law, but when I got to the law, it helped me become a more successful attorney, and a differentiator for me for sure. So I was working for an attorney, John Dvorak, great man. He was fabulous with networking, and he was local. His business was local, but everyone knew him. He represented municipalities. He taught me a ton. He put me in front of people. He let me go. He let me learn. He let me get clients. It was a wonderful experience. But as I went through it, I had a long history of, I invested, in multifamily with my father. I had been involved with a variety of things. I was a lawyer by day, and I was a tiler and carpenter by night, because I would go ahead and do remodels and condo conversions on my own. So I was starting towards that path, but I never correlated the fact that my entrepreneur side should meld into my legal side.
So you kind of were an attorney by day and had side hustle of various other things unrelated, so to speak.
That's right. And so I learned that, both are good. And then I think one year I made more money, doing the side hustle than being a lawyer. And I try not to affect it. But then I was starting to think that I may want to be a developer. So I was sort of still practicing law, and that's when I separated from my boss. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. John was a great guy, and he gave me a lot of opportunities, and probably I could have joined his practice at some point. But I wanted to be fair to him, because I started seeing myself meld into a couple different things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's when it shifted. I said, well, the only way to do this is to hang my shingle. And it was tough. It was the right when my kids were being born, and we just moved into a new house, and I'm on my own, and I've got to fund a new office. So it was a little bit scary, for that part. But I said, you know what? I could do it. I could bring in clients. As long as we bring in clients, we can get this done. And I had a wonderful, wonderful assistant, Marianne Lickner at the time. Now was Marianne Break now. So
Yep.
Marianne Lickner at the time. Sorry.
She's
And
amazing.
she's an amazing, amazing person. I don't think I could have gotten anywhere without her. Yeah,
Mm.
honestly, she made my life easier. to such an extent, and maybe learn about delegation at a high level.
So when was Fornaro Law born, Phil?
It was January 1 of 2004.
Okay. And so were you like straight into, did you begin as a real estate law firm?
Yeah, we were always heavy. I mean, I cut my teeth on residential commercial law, and also I was fortunate because we were municipal lawyers with Dvorak. And what happened was I learned how to be a TIF attorney. I learned how to do economic development and a lot of zoning. From the developer side, I was able to pick it up easily because I already experienced it from the municipal side as a public attorney. So yeah, that was, I loved real estate. I still love real estate too.
Yeah, that's great.
Even today.
Phil, I'm starting to see here why or how you've been able to develop this passion for entrepreneurs, in the sense of that you were one separate from your law firm, that you can empathize with people who are just forming their, putting their articles together or developing partnerships or starting to develop strategies or whatever it is. I see how your own experience can add a lot of value to that group of people.
Yeah, so we love to understand the business of our clients. We love to dive in and we'd like to give business advice. So this is sort of the unique part of our practice and how I operate. I think one time it was funny. I was talking to someone and the attorney goes, "Well, that's a business part of the transaction. I don't want to deal with that. That's the clients." I go, "Well, what do you mean? I know what to ask. I know what to tell. I want to get involved in my client's business so I understand them better so we can help them." And having the perspective of being a business owner and doing entrepreneurial type things, you're able to overlay that knowledge and give that knowledge to your client. And the same way your client gives you that knowledge. So it's a different perspective going into a transaction, and where all the problems lie because of it.
Phil, observing you, I've noticed a few things, and I think it's really important. There's a lot of people that tolerate their work and do it as long as they have to, and then are like, "Man, I'm glad, I got 2 more years of this and I'm out of here," or whatever it is. And you've actually made a different decision, which is kind of listening to yourself, so to speak, and kind of following what your passion, or of course there's profits involved, and there's you got to synergize with the pragmatism of entrepreneurship. But what is that within you that has made a decision to say, I'm more, the older I get, I'm not going to do things I really don't want to do?
Yeah, and that's my adage. And it was funny, again, back to, I've had this sort of like major change in vision and life and how I experienced it over the last 2 or 3 years. And 2 years, it's sort of accelerated. I found that the more time that I spend with people that I like and give me energy and give me new challenges where I can learn something new or apply my knowledge to something that they need, or helping others, that's the way to go. And then what I've been doing, actually accelerating it, is that if I don't like the situation, I don't like what I'm doing, I don't like what the client's telling me, and we can't work it out, I separate myself from it. And it's the greatest thing. It's like, addition by subtraction. And it really elevates you, because guess what? You've got more time for the part one, where you can deal with people that you really love and love to interact with.
It's so powerful. So I, in my young entrepreneurial career, I said yes to everything. And now I say yes to almost nothing. And, but just a very few things. And you realize that your energy, that divine energy that you have, and it's a finite energy, it has more power when you're coming from a sense of passion, a sense of purpose, and that it creates and re-energizes you with just a great spirit and joy for your work,
Oh, that's awesome. And thank you for not saying no to me. Holy cow. I feel very special.
No. One of the greatest, Phil, I really believe one of the greatest resources we have are these kind of group of entrepreneurs that are in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s that are kind of put out to pasture. And, you know, they
Yeah.
have so much to teach the rest that I think it's going to be a real, you know, for the youth to be able to mine the wisdom of the old, but still mix in the ambition, the technology, whatever the things are that youth can bring to the table, that for fresh perspective. I think that that's a great balance. So kudos to you for staying in the game.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fun time. This is where, you know, all the knowledge has sort of been created, and, you know, talking to the young people, giving them, you know, like you said, the energy to their enthusiasm just, you know, supplements what we try to do here. So,
Yeah, so
and
Phil, I want to
everywhere.
go back to when you started your entrepreneurial venture, your law firm, and thinking about, you know, yeah, I do have wife and kids. You know, everyone looks, maybe drives by your place and goes, "Oh, look at lucky Phil Fornaro," right? But you know, there was a period of time where you're like, "This is a great risk here. That if things don't go, you know, if things go wrong, or what I have to balance going to the ball game." Or whatever with my wife, with the pressures of entrepreneurism. What are there any tips that you have for kind of work-life balance that have helped you?
Yeah, so I didn't have a real work-life balance. Unfortunately, my wife, you know, tolerated it and carried the
Yep.
load with the family. But I was working lots of hours, like I said, you know, morning and night, you know, trying to build and learn and grow and, you know, establish, you know, something for myself. And what I realized as kids were getting older, I said, you know, I really got to sort of dive in. So by weird chance, one of our neighbors, we just moved into LaGrange, and this is important. This is like the most. Forget everything else I say about the law or, you know,
That's
business.
great.
This is important. So my wife signed me up to coach softball. My young daughter Emma, at the time, she was like 8, and we just moved into LaGrange. And you know, I showed up at the first you know, meeting. I said, "Yeah, I'm here to help coach." And she goes, "No, your wife signed you up to manage." I go, "What?" I go, "I don't even know anything about softball. You know, I was
Yeah,
an
who's
only
on
child."
first?
Yeah, I go, exactly. So I said, "You don't understand. We don't have anybody else, and we already signed you up. All the teams have been picked." I said, "Okay, I'll try it." I'm telling you, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to my relationship with my daughter and later with my other 2 boys. Is that because I was managing, I fitted in my schedule as if it was anything else.
Yeah.
That like, if I have to go to a trial, but no, I have to go to a game too. So I'm going to schedule around the trial
Yeah,
around
you
this
put it on
game.
the calendar.
That's right. And it was huge because my calendar was full. So, but this
Mhm.
became a priority. I told Marianne at the time, I said, "Hey, Marianne, we got to make sure this is happening. I have to, every 6 o'clock on Wednesdays, we're going to have a practice. Here are the games." We put it into the calendar. And back then it was like the hand calendars. We're just getting into, you know, electronic calendars. So we were running, you know, and so then I moved my practice closer so I could, you know, be closer to the situation. But any young parent, and I made my many mistakes. That was not one of them. And I
Mhm.
encourage people to get involved in that. And because you're not just obligated to your own child, you're obligated to this group of people in a community. And, you know, you're responsible to make sure that you're there, you're doing these things. And also you get to know who your kids are, who they're friends with, and how they operate. So that was a huge thing to help me with my work life balance, and I think it helped me really drive into my family at that time.
I love it. You know, and I do know that if you don't put the things on your calendar, it seems like other things, it's kind of like the big rocks in the jar, you know, mentality that something always takes precedent, some other meeting that, you know, who even knows what meetings we're blowing off our family for, right? 20 years ago, they meant
Yeah.
nothing, but your kids and your wife are still with you today. And it's like, wow, I got to get those things on my calendar. I want to contribute. I want to bring the same energy I'm bringing to work and all the ideas and ingenuity and passion, all that. Why can't I bring that to their softball effort, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right. That's right.
yeah, kudos to you for that, Phil. So Phil, another thing that I'm always been impressed with about you and your law firm is that there are professionals that move through your firm. Some stay with you for very long periods of time, and others go on to new and great ventures. And there's never no butt hurtness or any of these things. It's just like you're blessing them on the way out. And so I just want to maybe get your mindset on people that work with your firm, and then, you know, how some of them stay with you for the whole journey, but then others move on, and just what allows you to have a free spirit about that.
So it's never fun when someone leaves, but you always want someone to advance and follow their passion. And a lot of the change at Fornaro Law has been a result of a pivot or something that we are doing completely different. So if you ask me, you know, what my practice looked like in 1995 compared to what it looked like in 2009, and then what it looked like after the Great Recession, and then now into our new model, things change, and it does it. I mean, we got rid of litigation entirely out of our practice. We'll dispute resolution, but we won't litigate anymore. It doesn't fit our current model. So the litigations attorneys had to leave. It just didn't fit. You know, at some point we bring those type of things back, but it's just a pivot, and it's just people moving. And we have been very, very blessed with longevity with the people that we have here. And it's because we listened to them, and we grew this together. And that was the most important thing. And when you're part of something, it's better if they want to stay.
Yeah. And so, Phil, talking about that pivot. So when you come down off the mountain, right, and you say, "Hey, everyone, here's the new vision," you're pretty sure that there's going to be a couple, 2, 3 people in the room that are going to be like, "I don't like that," or "That's not the way I want to go," or "That's not what I was hoping for." So how do you balance that to say, "Hey, listen, you got to be courageous in the direction of the firm, knowing that there's a risk that some people aren't going to come along."
Yeah. So I made those mistakes so many times. I would just, you know, they used to make fun of me, say I'm following the shiny penny or nickel or whatever whatever it is. And
Yeah.
and it was sort of like that, but it was more learning. And I followed clients and I watched things. And the reason that I got to this point, I'm going to answer your question in a second, but the reason where I directed was that I tried to go where other people weren't. So if for whatever reason, like when we shifted in the downturn, and that's where you and I became very close, and learned, you actually taught me how to market at a high level, which I will always appreciate.
Thank you.
We went ahead and we shifted to that model because everyone else was running away. So we shifted to it. So what I did wrong was I didn't tell the team beforehand what I was thinking, what I was doing. I just did. And I just reacted and went because I knew it was the right thing. I knew that we would corner the market. I knew we wouldn't have any competition. So we ran. So now with this outside general counsel model that we have now, and I did that a couple more times, and they were getting mad at me. My team is getting mad. They say, "You know what? Tell us what you're doing. We're going to come, but just tell us." So we created leadership teams, and we brought in and we talked about what our vision was. And, you know, I had a business coach, Phil Fulton. He helped me create a vision. I did a vision statement early on. And then I showed it to my team. I said, "Here, this is where we're going. What do you think?" And then they would go, "Well, what about this, that?" And next thing you know, we're on track. And lo and behold, whatever we wrote down is now happening. So it was a lot of trial and error.
There's a saying that says authorship is ownership. And so as people join you to, create that model together, and I know for leaders, right, some of these things and these moves that you've made, you've probably been percolating on them, or thinking and synthesizing and never saying anything to anybody, right? Until you feel like, I think I know what I'm thinking, and you start to formulate. So I think it's really powerful that the first idea is not always the best idea, but it is the first idea. And then to synthesize that with your team, a good quality team, to go, now we have not just the first idea, but the best idea. So that's great.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So Phil, I think people have heard a lot about, just the law firm and your priority of relationships and your priority. I think it's really great that you take a great interest in business. I think a lot of people are so transactional today that to have a group of professionals that take interest in, some of the more the details of the business, I think is a brand value in and of itself. So kudos to you on that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's the funny thing. Even my name's on the door. listen, I do such a small percentage of the work. And my
Mhm.
team is wonderful. Our team is wonderful. They just
Yeah.
crank it out, and they create the reputation now of
Yeah.
Fornaro Law based on their solid work.
Yeah. So Phil, I know you gave us a little window into your, kind of the process of how you created the vision. Are there any, for you personally, are there any like daily habits that you've established over time as a business person, as a dad, whatever, that are like, kind of staples for you? The way you start your day, the way you end your day, whatever it is.
So I know I know which way most people answer this question, and I'm going to answer it probably the opposite.
I love it.
I've been tortured again for about 52, 53 years. Tortured because I always want to do that. I always want to have, I'm going to exercise at 8 a.m. I'm going to eat an egg, and I'm going to, go and have my coffee at 10, and
Meditate.
I'm going to meditate. I'm going to exercise at the same time every day, and it's going to be very, very structured. And I tried to do that, and I tried to do that, and I kept on failing because I wouldn't do it.
Right.
So what I thought was the shiny penny wasn't the shiny penny. It's that I finally figured out 6 months ago, I want to do what I want when I want to do it with who I want to do it with.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People, Not Titles podcast. We are brought to you by our great sponsors, Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results.
I'm really bad at that. My mom's gonna be mad. She's a teacher, so she'll be mad because I got it wrong. But that's the structure of it. I could be like working on like this huge like brief. When I was litigating, I go, you know what? I want to take a bike ride. I would get out and do it, or I will, step up. As soon as I start focusing and saying I have to do something, that's when I sort of fail. And I thought it was a problem. And I thought that this was always that only successful people set goals, they set parameters, they set schedules.
They're regimented.
That's right. So you have to go with who you are, what's deep in your heart.
Yeah.
And if you don't follow that, then you're just struggling against yourself. Whenever there's angst, you have to go, what is this angst from? Why am I having a problem with this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird phenomena. And, like I said, don't wait that long. Don't wait 53 years to figure it out. And it was hard to figure out, but I went through a process. I talked about it. I read, Find Your Why by Simon Sinek. I read other books, and then I started talking to people and say, what is going on here? So anyway, I'm sorry I didn't answer the question you wanted.
No, I love it. That's actually, that is a great, so that manifests itself daily in, if I feel like if I have an inspiration to do something, I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do whatever it is.
That's right.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've never been happier.
And Phil, does the group that, a lot of people are like sitting in their cube, right? And they're like, how do I do that? Right. I got to be here at 9. I got to be here at this. That doesn't mean that you're not disciplined in the things you're doing. It just means that you're listening to yourself a little more and not like doing it. Oh, the way Joe does it this way. He wakes up at 4 a.m. and does, fasts till noon and only eats, beets till 6. And you're just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put all that pressure on myself.
Yeah, and it may be this, what you're involved in, and it doesn't have to be to that extent where you're just, because you're right, people don't have all that time. Yeah. But when you have your discretionary time, that's when you start figuring it out. Is that I'm going to use this discretion? Am I going to binge watch, The Bear, or am I going to, is that make me happy, or it would be cooler to read this book that's going to make me happy, or is it going to be, I'm going to spend more time with my kids? Focus in on what's important and then start little steps. And then you go, oh, that really gave me joy. I'm going to try to do more of that.
Good for you, Phil. I love it. That's great. A lot of people BS everyone with how disciplined they are. And then you get close to them. It's like, this person isn't doing any of that stuff. It sounds good, from the stage, TED Talk or whatever it is, and you think everyone's so polished, and you realize, man, I just got to show up, kind of be normal, do some of the things I like, stay out of trouble, and I'm going to, beat, not that the goal is to beat anyone, but you're the only Phil Fornaro, and so it's best to lean into that than anything else. It's not try to be anybody else.
That's perfectly stated. Absolutely.
Kudos. All right, Phil. So let's talk about the vision for the firm. Is it just, hey, I told you what my firm is, and we're just going to keep doing our best to be that, or is there some place that you're now hoping to go to that is compelling for you?
Yeah, we have our foot on the accelerator. So we are very fortunate to have a huge client base of business clients. Our outside general counsel model allows us to have long-term relationships with these clients. We learn about the clients, and I heard the other day someone on some podcast said, "Well, you can't be friends with your clients." Listen, these are my great friends now. They're some of my best friends, and we spend, I want to continue to grow it, and it makes it so much easier. Some of our strategic partners, like our accountants that we deal with, or financial planners or insurance brokers, these people all are our resources and our friends and referral sources. So I'd like to go out and meet more. And our goal is to, dive in. We've got a couple publicly traded clients now where we deal with their in-house counsel. And our goal is to get into a couple family offices and represent them, because I think our model, I know our model will overlay nicely over it. In order to achieve this, we have so much work, and we want to get the right types of clients. We're very selective, as you said you were earlier on, as to who you deal with and how. And it's very important is we have a rigorous process to bring them in. It's quick, but rigorous. But our goal is to start buying law firms and overlay our technology systems and our systems and our standard operating procedures over them, hire a lot more attorneys, and then grow this not only nationally, but internationally, as our clients are growing with us as well.
Wow, I love it, Phil. Okay, so let's talk by the way, a lot of people said you can't have family in your business, right? And you make friends and all that. Here's where I think the danger is of that, is that there's disappointment, right? And when you do business with your heart, there's a chance that your heart gets hurt because a relationship goes bad or whatever it is. But my experience has been the benefit of doing business with your heart and the relationship and the care you have for each other and all those things far outweigh the negatives of the one situation where something goes bad or whatever it is. And so kudos to you for, not buying into the BS of, you can't have close relationships with people that, and if they move on to another law firm because they feel like that, you're just that type of person who's like, hey, good luck. Hope if it doesn't work out, come on back. We'll always, that kind of, as opposed to, screw you, you get what you deserve or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's funny because that's how I used to be.
Yeah,
That's changed
right.
over time. It goes, why do I want to be, so angry and aggressive? Let's work together. But you're right. It's like, yeah, they go away. People go away. They come back all the time. That's
Absolutely.
I call random people. I called one of my buddies the other day. He saw my podcast, and I said, hey, where are you at? And he's in New York, so I'm going to go out for coffee with him. I haven't seen him since college. It's
Wow.
unbelievable. These are the cool things that pump me up.
Yeah. So Phil, let's, talk briefly about if I'm, you're saying, hey, we're looking to match up with the right law firm and to do a deal with them so that they can be a part of our program and it could be win-win. What would be the profile of a law firm that you would say would be perfect for synergy with Fornaro Law? And like, what state would they be in, and what would be the benefits for them? I think I see the benefits, but maybe just make that more clear.
Yeah. So our model is directly related to business owners and middle market companies, from 25 million to $1 billion.
Okay.
Our clients, and then we have some smaller ones that grow into our model and are going to hit those points at some point. So we're looking for attorneys that are learners, that they're creative, and that they have a client base that are directly related to commercial real estate, corporate law, estate planning, high-end estate planning, mergers and acquisitions. So things that an attorney that is sort of either getting out of litigation, because the best transactional attorneys are ones that are litigators because they've seen all the contracts and what's wrong with them. Maybe they want a change of pace. They want more autonomy over clients. those are the type of attorneys. And then older attorneys that are trying to get out of their practice, they love practicing law, and we give them the opportunity to practice as much law as they ever would want to, without the headaches of managing people, making sure bills get out, make sure bills get paid, firing, hiring, all those other things. So it's basically somebody that just wants to practice law at a high level. And then other people that may want to come in and grow a practice and learn how a practices grow, and maybe want to be part of the leadership team. These are all the type of attorneys that we would buy into. And it could be out of state too, because our model is that we practice law everywhere.
Yes.
So it's fine. But anybody local, Chicago area, Indiana, Wisconsin, it's a nice place to be in. We've got some great technology, so we can stay in touch that way.
Beautiful. I love it, Phil. Phil, let's wrap up by talking about your podcast, which is really, I saw on LinkedIn that, wow, holy mackerel, Phil Fornaro is having starting a podcast, and he has started it, and you've had some great guests on. What was the inspiration of that? And then let's talk about just where people can find you.
Yeah. So I didn't know what a podcast was really. I didn't know the world is sort of diving into podcasts, for their information and creating their communities that listen to them. And I didn't know the concept, things, go past me sometimes. I said, so one day I was sitting around and, I listened to a podcast, and I go, oh, that's kind of interesting. And, I always thought it should be law related, but then realized it shouldn't. But the trigger point, because I've been on this search, especially the last 2-3 years, I'm going, nothing makes me happy anymore. We did well financially, a couple years ago and then that wasn't making me happy. My family made me happy, but then it's like, okay, I spend more time, at work dealing with clients. I go, what's the most important thing? So I'm sitting and, this is not to pump me up because I won an award with the West Suburban Chamber of Commerce, but the story is as a result of that. So I went to the Chamber of Commerce to accept this award. It was like the business, community business award of the year. And Tina Rounds from Beds Plus, a charity here in LaGrange and around the Chicagoland area, they help place the homeless and give them the ability to get back out on their own. And she read something, and we help them all the time. So we do non-for-profit, work, but we oftentimes will just do it pro bono because they're a great organization. And it was funny. I only did this so that I could help them because I could help them, because my skill set allowed me to help them with zoning. And I didn't know. I didn't know how they were feeling about it. And she read something, and, all of a sudden I go, she's reading about how it affected them and how it impacted them. And, I go, what are these salty things on my eyes? I go, I don't experience this too often, but it hit me to my soul. And wow. I said, oh my God, this is what I need to do. I try to help impact people that I don't even know. And I go, how do I do that? How do I impact people I don't know? Because I can only meet a certain amount of people. And then someone said, they go, well, do a podcast, dummy. And I said, oh, okay. So then we started, I think Steve Fretzen introduced me, or Bill Fulton introduced me to Steve Fretzen. Our network is lovely. I love our network. That's the podcast for today, actually.
Okay.
Or on, as of August 16th, sorry.
Okay.
Basically, he said, talk to this guy, Doug Sandler's Turnkey Podcast. And it's so easy to set it up, and they do everything. I just pay a little bit of money, and next thing I know, I'm just talking. Yeah. And it's nice to be able to impact people and help them maximize their lives and give them our network. So I just thought about this the other day when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today. And it's the fact that people don't have to build their own network if they have my network. And my network is immense now. And it's cool because each of our guests, as they come on, will be able to help them, because the people I bring on are there to help other people. They're not there just to be, pumping their businesses. So hopefully that answered your question.
But, it does. Yeah. So your vision is, how do I how do I impact how do I still make an impact? And it is, hey, there's been people that have affected me. There are people that are adding value. And if I could leverage my network and spread their message, kind of spread the light, right? What's the name of the podcast, Phil?
So it's called Lightbulb Moments.
Light
It's
bulb.
all about the energy with
I
Phil
love it.
Fornaro. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And Phil, and it's available on Apple and Spotify, and you can find Phil on LinkedIn as well, and everywhere else, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's LBM, like light bulb moments, lbmpodcast.com. And yeah, and it was funny, the guy said, are you doing this to raise money or this or that? I go, nope.
yeah,
There's nothing to do with that. And I just want to bring value. And I think
bring
it's fun.
value.
And
Yeah,
guess what? If I only have one listener, I love it for myself. This was what I needed at this
that's
time in my
great.
life. So
Yeah, and you know what? The the first listener needs to be you, right? And you've listened to yourself, and now it's like, hey, I know if I share my heart, it's going to impact someone. So that's all we can do, right? As opposed to if you're trying to say, in fact, this funny thing, I have a person that does my video editing, and we're always talking about entrepreneurship, growing, how to, family, faith, those kind of things. And so my video editor goes, hey, you'd get a lot more action if you talked about Ukraine and the elections and Taiwan and all this. And I'm like, wow, so this is the advice people are getting, right? Forget about your message, or forget about what you really want to talk about. Start talking about these 5 hot topics, and you'll start building followers. And it just reminded me that a lot of this discussion is all driven towards getting our eyes, our hearts and minds off of our game, our energy, where it should be going, your power in the community, and on to maybe problems that you really don't have any power to solve right now. And
yep.
so people forget about, it's kind of like, I forgot about my neighbor because I want to argue with someone across the world about this thing or that thing. It's like, no, just knock on your neighbor's door and have a beer with them, and you realize you're a lot closer than you think, regardless of the sign they have in their yard. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's true. Yeah, we should give advice. Don't put signs in yards.
yeah, don't put signs in yards. Absolutely. Well, Phil, one more thing that I want to ask you is the power of mentors. And you mentioned, coaches and that kind of thing. Have mentors really been key for you? I heard early on it's your parents, right? Saying, having maybe that expectation, your mom speaking real powerful words at a critical moment in your life. Is there anyone else that comes to mind, or any few people?
Yeah, and this is so easy, and it pops out of your head. And
That's great.
as you absorb into how people affected you and how they made you feel, and they give you what you need at the time. So first were my high school coaches, Joe Newton, who was like an amazing high school. He won so many state championships, national championships, a motivator beyond all motivator. But
Wow.
whenever I had my deepest, darkest problems, he would say something either so funny or so profound that it was
What sport was that, Phil?
I was in track. He recruited
Okay.
me for cross country. So the first day, of school, I remember freshman year, he goes, hey, you look like an athlete. I go, he goes, why don't you come
Yeah.
out for cross country? I go, no, I'm gonna play football. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, football. He wouldn't last very well now. He said football players are a bunch of, and we'll leave the last part.
Yeah.
I go, interesting. But he
Yeah.
was always there for me. Even when I was in college, I would, contact him, and he would, he came to a couple football games at Northwestern, and
Wow.
he was just a great guy. Same thing with my wrestling coach, Max Mitchell and Terry Clark. Those guys gave me inspiration. My head coach, Max Mitchell, he was such a quirky dude, but he gave me those little, I remember I still have the green card, says mental toughness is essential to success. And I
Wow.
give it to my kids, and I'm thinking in this, and he made a whole bunch of other things that made me happy, and he inspired me, and he made me work harder than I ever worked in my whole entire life. That was very inspirational. Same thing with on the other side. I was so busy in high school, And uh, someone led me out, Jean Baldakowski. She was journalism. She had the school newspaper. So she made me the editor-in-chief of the paper. I don't know anything about that, but she gave me leeway. She taught me how to lead. It was the most unbelievable thing. And I learned from all these people how to lead, how to grow, and how to try new things. Law school, and I'll be short, but I mean, there's so many.
I love
can go
it.
on
I
for,
love it. I love it.
so this was interesting too. My writing was suffering. Gene had taught me how to write succinctly, and then somewhere along the way, I stopped writing that way. I had a bad English teacher senior year. I won't name his name, but you know who you are. And I switched, and law school, I wanted to write more succinctly again. And so I had this teacher. She was a bear. She gave everybody like C's and D's. But I spent so much time with her, and she recorrected me, and she really is the heart and soul of how I've learned to write and think like a lawyer. Unfortunately, she passed away. I never got to tell her that, and that's a regret because I always said I was going to do it, and I feel really bad that I didn't. But I think about her all the time and how she shaped my career. And then now, it's just, it really comes down to my wife standing behind me and all these things we did. She goes with me, she pivots with me, she helps me with all my businesses and the law practice. And then, now who inspires me are my mentors are, my business coach, Phil Fulton. And then all of my clients and strategic partners. That's the beauty of getting your network so large is these people are my mentors in things that I don't know. Pretty intense. So I love that. I love that question. I'm so glad you left. I'm so glad you asked it.
That's amazing that you're able to learn from your clients. But it was actually the motivation of my podcast was that I felt like I was around such amazing people every day that I was just like, number one, I want to have a more structured conversation with them to get to know them better. And then number two, I thought, a lot of times we hear, okay, Kobe Bryant, or, you hear these people that might be, just so far away from us, whether it be geographically or otherwise, that you just go, that's really cool story, but that's good for him. But when you start to hear, wow, mentorship is important for the law firm guy, and for, all of a sudden, all these things start to become more real for all of us to be able to up our game. And so, there's power in learning from each other. And I think that's what the podcast platform is, just allows us a little bit of a larger voice to learn from each other. So
yeah,
I think it's really cool.
And I'm learning from you now too. I mean, you're such a great host, and you do a lot of good things, and you educate your community, like very few can. So I appreciate what you're doing, and you gave me inspiration to do more of what I'm doing now.
That's cool, Phil. Phil, going back to these mentors real quick, did you, and I really like your humility and what you said about not having the opportunity to express your gratitude to the lady. Did you go back to your coaches? Well, I mean, it sounds to me like you've been a student, and it's I really, this, that statement, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? It sounds to me like you've been, you've been very conscientious and aware as a student. And I'm willing to bet that some of these coaches that we're speaking life into, or even that first moment that cross-country coach spoke to you, he might have not even known the impact of his question and of him drawing you in like that and saying, just the words, you look like an athlete. What are you supposed to say, right? No, I'm not. I'm a putz, It's like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm an athlete. Let's go,
But think about that. That was 1983, and I remember it clearly.
Yes.
I knew where I was. Just the impact is so powerful, and you're right. It's like you don't know what you're going to say that's going to help somebody in the future. And little things in my head when my dad told me as a little boy, it's you got to make money while you sleep. What does that mean? But these things click, and he doesn't even remember saying it. And it's so weird and so powerful. That's why I say things, talk to things, try to help people, and trust me, it'll come back, 3,000-fold.
Totally. And I think it's really important that, if these mentors are still alive, and if we can think back, just with the spirit of gratitude of who marked me along my way and who tried to help me and who did stuff that they didn't have to do, I think it's really worth it to go back and go, hey, because I guarantee you, none of their students are going back and talking to them. And you'd be like, kind of like, they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you.
They
You know,
do.
they want to hear that their lives have been meaningful and that their effort as a teacher has been something that has marked kids. So anyway.
So yeah, I mean, I think your audience should rewind what you just said, Steve, because that's the best thing ever. Go back. People
Yeah.
love it. It's that you'll make them feel like $1,000,000. And I've
Yep.
done that with some. You know, I wish I'd done it with all before some of them passed away.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that, don't
Absolutely.
have that regret. Go back. It's
Amen.
it's critical. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Amen. All right, my friend. Well, listen, we'll put your information for the podcast. I'm really excited about being a follower and a listener and see where the journey goes, and just staying in touch with you as you continue to pursue greatness in your own way, Phil.
Don't foreclose the opportunity to come on my podcast, Steve.
Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, you got it. Glad. It would be my joy. So thanks a
for
lot,
that.
Phil.
All right. Have a good day, Steve.
All right, People Not Titles podcast signing off.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Land Trust Title Services. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you'd share our podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot.